Welcome to episode 111 of Auto Off Topic. What's up, Brad?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Oh, not too much. Just another Wednesday night.
It is. We're about to start complaining about the weather again, guys. Hold on to your hats.
No, I wasn't going to go there.
I didn't say we're going to this week,
We're not going to.
but by next week we're going to be because it's supposed to get real cold tonight
It's supposed to come up, though. Back up.
for like a
Hey,
minute.
we're verging into weather territory. Stop. Because there's still 2 cars and coffees left.
One.
Nope, 2.
Nope. One.
I went on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a 21st, and then a November 9th.
Correct.
Okay.
But I don't think the November 9th one is going to happen.
Okay.
But
So it's potentially, this is the second to last one, but there is one happening
Sunday.
Sunday, October 21st,
This Sunday.
this Sunday. Assuming you're listening to this on time, it will be in Salem, New Hampshire at the Coffee Factory.
Yes, on Clough Crossing Road.
Just Google it. It's Coffee Factory, Salem, New Hampshire. You can go on Facebook, Southern New Hampshire, Cars and Coffee. There's an event for it. I plan on going. You going to go in the morning?
I'll definitely be there, 100%.
Yeah, I'm going to bring the talent out.
And I'll be in the Sapporo.
Cool. So
That's 8 or 9.
believe that starts at 8.
I think it's 9. Let me double check.
I think it starts at 8. But
If you get there at 8, actually, I think you're right. I think it is 8. Let me check.
Yeah.
Check real quick, though.
pretty sure it's 8. Regardless, you can get there at 8 and have coffee.
And wait for everybody else.
Check it real quick.
Or be with everybody else. I'm trying, but my computer's being slow here in the basement again for some reason, even though you have all new internet.
Well, let me see if I can get to it.
It's half loaded up.
It is...
Do-do-do-do.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Well, it's half loaded now, but it won't show the event time.
Do-do-do.
Mother-
October 21st. Do-do-do. 9 a.m. You're correct. Brad is the winner.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Pedantic updates, 9 o'clock.
Yes.
9 a.m.
So be there before 9 for good parking.
Yep.
And for no line for coffee.
Because it is supposed to be a clear day.
It's probably going to be one of the last real nice days on a Sunday for Cars and Coffee, so it should be pretty crowded, I bet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway, take a drink. How did the Sapporo final prep for Philly go?
Project car update time already.
Yep.
Um,
Jump right into it.
It went well. It didn't go perfectly, but it went well. End result was the Sapporo made it to Philly and back home again with no incident at all. Car ran great. Transmission worked wonderful. I mean, it couldn't have been any better.
But what did you do to it after we talked about the leak?
So I think
We talked about the leak, and
Yeah.
then we hadn't fixed it yet. The next night after we recorded that podcast,
I ran over to the garage right after work.
yeah, you guys cleaned it up
I
again.
ripped the pan down,
Oh, you took the whole pan down again.
right?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
I forget where we left off.
No, it was leaking from the edge of the pan.
The first time we found it, not the second leak.
No, we talked about the second time.
We talked about when it was leaking after cleaning it, we saw it on the ground.
Yeah, you were trying to fix the door, and you went to move it, and there was a big puddle under the car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about pulling the pan down that time.
Did you? Did you pull the pan down?
I pulled the pan down
So two
once.
times.
So it was leaking twice after I finished it.
Right.
Did I discuss the first time yet?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So I didn't pull the pan down a second time.
No. I discussed that you should just clean it really well and goop over it because it was literally like a pinhole leak.
Yes, and that's what I did.
Okay.
So good.
Yeah. And that's
I
what...
forgot what we talked about last week.
No,
It's been
there
a
was-
long week fixing the car, going to Radwood.
There was a mad dash getting the car done.
Yeah, so it was leaking. So what was happening was when the car was off, the fluid fills up into the pan, and it went up above and beyond a point where it was leaking. But it was literally just a pinhole, and it was actually like finding its way through up and out. It wasn't like a pouring out leak.
No.
It was slowly seeping through as it sat.
Yeah.
It was like a typical oil leak. It was just a slippery, fluid made its way through a tiny little pinhole.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put it up in the air, cleaned it all. I sucked all the fluid out of it with like a transfer pump through the dipstick tube,
Oh.
so that I'd be able to not have it actively leaking fluid as I was trying to patch the outside of it.
Oh. Okay.
Because I wanted the RTV to have a chance to set up without any fluid against it, so that would not be an issue leaking again in the future.
Okay.
The problem all stems back to the fact that this is a Chrysler-based 904-based transmission, but it's in a slightly different housing made by Mitsubishi,
Yeah.
and nobody stocks the proper gasket for it.
I don't think anybody ever made the proper gasket for it.
It's listed in a bunch of places.
It is listed in a bunch of places, but what happens is everybody gets the gasket, goes, God damn it, this doesn't fit,
and uses
RTVs
RTV.
it, and then it never gets back and gets corrected. So
And now at this point in time, where it's 2018,
it doesn't
and
matter
this transmission
anymore.
hasn't been used since like '88 in a Montero.
RTV is a
Mighty Max.
completely suitable repair for that, 100%.
No, it is. I do think that at some point, though, let me back up a second here. So, once I pulled all the fluid out of the pan, because there's no drain plug in the pan, so I had to pull it out through the dipstick.
That's also annoying.
Yeah, super annoying. So I pulled it out through the dipstick, waited for a few minutes, cleaned the outside with brake clean, stood there and watched it to make sure no more fluid was seeping through where it was seeping through. And once it stopped seeping through altogether, hit it with some brake clean again. And then I just put more RTV on the outside of it, just kind of encapsulated the area that had an issue, and then let it sit for like 2 hours. After letting it sit for a few hours, I filled it back up with fluid. 2 hours? I do it the next day.
Doesn't matter. You let it dry for a while.
I let it dry for a while. I might even let it dry overnight. Now I'm thinking about it.
All right.
Anyway, I filled it back up with transmission fluid, and no leaks.
Cool.
So, I mean, it's not pretty because it's like a gooped RTV in the outside of it now versus just in between the transmission and the pan. But nobody's ever going to see it.
It doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter.
Works.
It works. Exactly. So the pan isn't perfect because it came off of a junkyard transmission. So it was sitting on the ground on the pan. So the only thing I can assume that's going on is it's not.
No. It wasn't on the ground.
It was on a shelf way above the sky. Yeah. Yes. So the only thing I can assume is that the pan is just not perfectly flat. And, I try to make it as flat as possible by putting it down on the concrete floor and just tapping it around the edges against the smooth surface of the floor to try to flatten it out. But it might be one little bend in it somewhere. Who knows? So, anyway, it's not leaking. Life is good.
Yep.
Fast forward to after that, I wanted to change coolant hoses on your suggestion, actually, because they looked a little
They seem soft.
soft.
And then I saw the one that you took off. It looked kind of swollen.
Yeah, I mean, they probably would have been fine, but it was cheap insurance. I think the hoses were like $8 and $9. They weren't a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when I took them off, there was a significant amount of corrosion on the aluminum, on the water pump, and on the thermostat housing on the engine. So it was good to get that all off of there anyway, because A, it's a potential source for leaks, and B, it's just not good to introduce any kind of corrosion into your cooling system.
It also looked like garbage.
It also looked terrible, yes.
Yeah.
It just looked like a non-maintained car. So I'm not sure what caused it, just different metals and damp air and
Yeah.
who knows. But nonetheless, it's cleaned up now.
I was just worried about, cruising down the road in the middle of New Jersey and whoosh, the hose blows off.
Yeah, exactly.
And the engine instantly overheats. And then we have another G54B that needs a head. And you're stranded away from home. So.
Anyway, changed the coolant hoses.
Yeah.
That wasn't a very eventful
Nope.
Experience. I mean, they were pretty much glued on at the those two places I talked about because of the corrosions.
Yeah.
One of them had to be cut off in order to get it off,
Yep.
but I got it off. And the new hoses fit. They were cut to fit, so they're like a basic angles are correct, and then you just trim them to fit because they're not, they're so sort of universal.
Yeah, we have that. My dad has that giant hose cutting tool that looks like if you got your finger stuck in it, it would just chop it off.
I didn't use it actually. I just used a box cutter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't know it was in there.
I didn't know there was a tool for that.
Yeah, it makes a nice beautiful clean cut noses, but
I could have used it because it's a little jagged on one of them, but whatever.
that's all right. I'll show you where it is next time.
It works, so it doesn't matter.
It's like a giant cigar cutter.
That's kind of cool. So yeah, I cut them with a regular box cutter. So that happened. The last thing had to be done was a muffler because I had no muffler on it.
Did you change the oil too?
I did,
All right.
and oil and filter.
Easy. No big deal.
Checked the rear diff.
Yeah.
Which I was pretty sure I did back when I first bought the car in 2012.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So I pulled the fill plug off, and it immediately started to leak out. So it was still plenty full.
All right.
And it looked clean. So I just put the plug back in and called that a day. What else are we talking about? Oh, I jacked up all 4 corners and checked wheel bearings because we were going to be doing a long trip to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. Tire rods are good. Ball joints are good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was nice and tight. In fact, fast forward to today, and I got an inspection sticker, but we'll reverse back to Friday now.
Yeah.
So I needed a muffler.
Yep.
And I had to put tires on because the tires that were on it were well past their prime. And the wheels that the tires were on were also well past their prime.
Oh, yes.
Based on style. They were put on the car in 2011 by the previous owner. And they were probably fashionable at the time, but they weren't fashionable anymore. I never really liked them, but they had brand new tires on them when I got them, so I just ran them. But it was time to replace tires now, so it was time to change everything, and I wanted to change the wheels and change the whole look of the car. So Friday morning, I set off to work. I brought the car with me, now fully legally road registered and ready to go. And there's a guy across the street from my work who runs a little muffler shop. So I figured I don't have time to do this myself. I'm going to throw the guy some business and have him weld on a muffler. He wound up replacing from in front of the axle all the way to the back. There's a big loop that goes over the rear axle housing and is actually a relief in the floor pan of the car for the pipe to sit inside of. And he bent the thing up perfectly so it sits inside that relief and over the axle the way it should. And it looks the way it should.
Wasn't he totally shocked too when he asked you if he could jack it up on the pinch welds?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, no worries. He can jack up the pinch welds. He's like, it's like an 83. I was like, it's totally fine. So he jacked it up on the pinch welds and was like, man, this thing's perfect underneath because California.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so he put the exhaust on. If anybody in this area needs exhaust work, I'd recommend him. It's a Andy's Undercar in Salem.
Yeah.
I mean, he took it in with no appointment and
Montero's got an exhaust leak, so
hung the muffler on it. And, I mean, it wasn't terribly expensive. I mean, he had to hand bend it. Well, he had a machine to bend it, but he had to, cut and paste and cut and paste and cut and paste and make the thing work. And it was like $180, including parts. So
yeah, sometimes that's worth it.
Can't really complain because it would have taken us all day and it would have been frustrating and it probably still would have cost me $60 or $70 in parts. Actually, it probably cost me $100 for a muffler. So
I'd love to learn how to weld, and I've done it a couple times on a muffler, but that wasn't the time to do it.
Yeah, and honestly, the welds on this job aren't like pretty, but they work. Yeah. So I don't need a show car weld finish. So
yeah.
For $180, I'm not expecting it to be like, the perfect stack of dimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The next time I have the time and I'm working on a project and I can fabricate my own exhaust and there's no rush, I will do it myself.
Yeah.
Or we'll do it ourselves. But
so the last thing that needed to happen was I needed to mount tires on wheels.
Uh-huh.
And I was having such a heavy internal debate about what size tires to run. I didn't know if I wanted to run 205 50-15s or 205 60-15s or split the difference with a 205 55-15.
Mm-hmm.
And it may sound trivial, but
it did to me.
Because
I knew what tires to run.
But to me, having the proper height sidewall to the stance of the car and the size of the wheel is very important because it completely changes the way the car looks. If it's too tall of a sidewall, it looks dumb. If it's too small of a sidewall, it looks dumb. It has to be just right. So you had on your old OZ rally wheels from your Galant a set of probably 75% used Yokohama S-Drives.
Yep.
in a 205/55, perfectly splitting the difference between the 50s and the 60s.
And they were mounted on 15x7 wheels.
And they're mounted on 15x7s, which is the exact same size wheel that I had,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew they would look good.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought was just to mount your wheels on my car and run the OZs.
Mm-hmm.
But with a plus 38 offset, the 15x7 wouldn't even sit flush on the hubs in the front.
Yeah, it's a front-wheel drive offset. You're trying
Right.
to put it on a rear-wheel drive car.
Correct.
Didn't
So
work.
what was happening was the tire was hitting the strut, and it wouldn't even mount flush with the car. I would have needed like a 1/4 inch wide spacer.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to run that on the front of my car. So didn't use those. Now I had to decide whether I wanted to take the time to take the wheels off of my Starion, which are 15x7 0 offset, Enki 92,
Which would have looked great.
or run the 15x7 plus 12 offset Watanabe RSs, which didn't have any tires on them and were already off of a car, which made life easier.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that logic, I went with the Watanabes.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to my father, who I threw a little shade at last weekend, but he helped me out huge this week with getting my tires and wheels mounted.
Mm-hmm.
He loaded them all up in the back of my truck while I was at work,
Mm-hmm.
drove them down to a tire shop, had the tires taken off of your OZs,
Mm-hmm.
which unfortunately they marred the finish on a little bit. We'll take care of that later.
Mm-hmm.
And mounted them on my Watanabes.
Yeah.
He went down and picked them up and drove them home. Was unloading from the truck and realized that they were never balanced.
Oh.
Yeah. So he had to drive all the way back down to the shop and have them balanced. To which he said to the guy, "Why wouldn't you balance these?" And the guy said, "Oh, you just said you wanted me to mount them."
Oh my God.
And he was like, "Yeah, it's implied that you will balance them after you've mounted
I
them."
know. I know. You say mounted and balanced sometimes, but
It should be redundant.
Yeah,
It should be the same
exactly.
thing. Nobody's going to run wheels. You just mount on a, like, absolute nightmare. So anyway, my father's like, yeah. He's like, I told the guy, I was like, hey, I told you he was driving the car to Philadelphia. Like, he's not going to want to drive to Philadelphia on 4 unbalanced wheels. That would be an absolute nightmare. The wheels would probably shake themselves loose and fall off the car. So anyway, he managed to do that for me during the day, which was awesome.
Mhm.
Huge thanks to him. Especially considering he was suffering from a medical malady and wound up in the hospital later that day. After doing that for me.
Mhm.
He put off going to the hospital to do that for me, so that was cool. Shouldn't have done that, but I appreciate that he did. He's okay. There's no big problems. He's fully recovered now 1 week later. But anyway, so got the wheels back to your father's garage where the car was.
Yep.
Now mounted and balanced.
Yep.
You met me there. We bolted them on the car, and I have not been that happy in a long time.
Yeah.
They looked absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Like the wheel's perfect, the offset's perfect, the tire sidewall is perfect. The car just sat beautifully. It changed the whole look of the car.
Car looks 1,000 times better.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
As some
Yeah,
people would say,
so-so.
I would say.
It's
yes.
so.
Yeah, no, the car looks really, really good now. It's the way I envisioned it in my brain. So I'm very glad that you had 205/55s because they're the way to go.
Yeah.
And the speedometer is actually closer too than it was before
Mhm.
because they're a bigger overall diameter than the. I think it had it had 195/45s on 16s, which were like, I don't know, it was that weird stretch look, which is not my favorite.
No. Save the sidewalls.
Yeah, big meaty sidewalls are way better looking. Car looks damn good now, and it rides better, and it looks better, and it handles better. Like the car has got some serious, it's not like our compound tire or any means, but
Yeah.
it's predictable, it's quiet, it just handles so much better now. So, great success. Great success.
Yeah. Well, now you've got a little time. When you bring the car out next spring, you can drive it for a little while and then mount some fresh ones on there.
Yeah, I'll buy the same tires again because they
Yeah.
look perfect and they've hit perfect.
Mhm.
I do want to do a 4-wheel brake job to the car because the pads are pretty low,
Yeah.
a few millimeters left. Plus, it could stand a refresh on the brakes. The rotors are a little,
Yeah, flush all the
little
hydraulic
warped.
fluid out.
Yeah.
There's also that low speed vibration I rode in it, taken off from a.
It's an acceleration vibration.
So I think I did the carrier bearing.
Okay.
We didn't have U joints at the time, and I just reused the ones that were in there.
Okay.
We should try replacing the U joints.
Do you think it's going to be U-joints?
They could cause that?
Because we put U-joints in it the last time
I
I had
don't
it.
think you did. They looked real old.
I
They
thought I
looked
did.
original.
I don't know.
The
It's only from a stop. And only under, like, a load.
U-joints are cheap, and
Yeah,
they
no,
can be
you're
done
right.
in like 2 hours on that car.
Okay.
So
Well, no, I want to go through a bunch on that car. I want to do a bunch of different. I want to get the AC working again too, because everything's there. The idler pulley just let go,
yeah,
so it'd be good to have that car have AC again. And I
can
still
just
kind of want a 5-speed swap it.
run that transmission for a little while.
Yeah, no, I probably won't do that anytime soon. I have too
It
many
was
other projects.
It was a pain to get it out and in.
Yeah, I have too many other projects right now, but that's still on the.
Yeah, eventually.
It would make that car so much nicer.
I do some more restoration to it first.
I think if I go the level of 5-speed swapping it, the car is going to get a full new paint job and everything.
Yeah, I'd go that way, doing some of that stuff first before going down the
Yeah.
road, because it.
Works.
So you want to talk about what happened to the doors?
I don't really want to admit it, but fine. So at some point in the car's life, something must have damaged the inside of the door.
Yeah.
Because
Or a factory flaw.
it could have been a factory flaw. Mitsubishi's known for having weird sheet metal issues like that. Rust formed on the inside of the door. Not against anything, not against any braces, not against any bolts. Just kind of randomly in a couple of spots in the middle of the door, like 3 inches down from the belt line. I saw a little rust bubble on the outside of the door, and I assumed that the paint had chipped at some point and moisture had gotten under the paint, and I was just going to scratch it down and do a little bit of SEM like rust converter on it, and then just spot in a little silver to make it, stop it from spreading. So I went to scrape it down, and instead of just scraping off a top coat, I all of a sudden had an 1/8 of an inch round hole in 2 places in the door. No other rust in the car anywhere, just these 2 spots in the door. I don't get it. Super frustrating because the car is rust free. It had to have started from the inside because it looked like a little just mark on the outside. So they had to have been, at some point, somebody must have gone into that door and done something and cracked the paint. Or when the car was being put together, they scored the finish on the inside, and it worked its way out over the past 35 years. So I now have to fix the doors. I was going to do a temporary fix, mix up some Marglass, put it on a piece of like metal tape, put it in the back of the door, knock it down, put a little Bondo filler on the outside, and spray it silver and let it sit for a while and just use it around that way, but I didn't because I ran out of time. So I did the super cheesy fix of I just put 2 little pieces of silver stripe tape over the hole,
Yeah.
and nobody noticed it, I don't think. At least nobody brought it up, so it's cool, but I know it's there. I want to get it fixed right. I don't want this car to rust away. I know it seems extreme to say rust away when all it is like a small spot in the door, but it bothers me tremendously. So I am leaning more towards painting the whole car now. The car is nice enough that it deserves it, I think. I've had the car for 5 years.
The interior is mint, so
yeah.
It would really set it off with new silver paint.
And it doesn't really require any heavy body work. There's a few little dings and dents. There's a dent in the front fender that's
Somebody
been there.
can pull it.
It could be fixed.
Pull the hood.
I'd probably try to find a hood for it. It's probably not impossible. They're probably out there. It's got a few ripples in the hood just from being in a junkyard at one point in its life. I'm
Yeah.
sure stuff was stacked on top of it.
Simple colors too. It's just a silver,
It's a plain silver and a
black.
plain black. Yep, with a silver and red pinstripe in between the 2 colors. Nothing difficult at all. So it's just, getting it done.
Yeah.
But I want to preserve the car, and I think the proper way to preserve this car is to paint the car, make the car look new, get rid of all the imperfections.
Were the taillight surrounds silver?
Yes. Well, they're kind of like yellow plastic color now.
Yeah,
They're
like
faded.
the silver just kind of
One of them
fell
actually
off.
has a crack in it,
sunk in.
so it could be bonded back together and sanded smooth if I can't find one. So.
Yeah, and the top of the bumper, is that supposed to be black or
Supposed to be silver.
silver? Just kind of.
So it's half silver and half black, and
Yeah.
it's just the car was in California its whole life, so
Yeah.
that's sun beaten.
Yeah.
and faded away.
Somehow the interior is in really great shape.
Mitsubishis of the era really were.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a Starion with a cracked dash.
Yeah.
You ever seen a Montero with a cracked dash?
No.
Yeah, they were really good quality at that point. They figured it out sometime in between Colt and Starion.
Yeah.
So the car ran great. Car made it to Radwood. Car made it home from Radwood.
Car made an impression in Radwood.
Car made an impression in Radwood. We'll talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So quickly on the Montero, we talked about quite a few episodes ago. It had a ripped ball joint on the tie rod end. I just popped that in.
Yeah, we talked about that when we were doing the axle.
Yeah, I grabbed one, popped it in.
Actually, didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I did last night. It was so fast. And
Okay.
the other thing my dad had when I was getting the Talon ready to go, we just did like a tape measure alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, there's these things called toe plates. You can do alignments at home with them. He's like, oh, that's neat. Next day, he's like, oh, I bought a set. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we actually used those on the Montero. So we set it up.
Oh, you have used them already.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
before we took it apart, we measured it because I know the truck was aligned recently. It drives straight, like within a year. It drives perfectly straight down the road. So we checked it. Like, all right, cool. Those are the measurements. So we know it's lined up straight. It was nice and even.
Nice.
So we took it apart, which actually, with the way that lift is set up being a roll-on lift, you could actually leave the wheels and tires on the ground and get the tire rod end off.
Yeah, which is actually convenient. +1 for the roll-on lift.
Yeah. And then we did have to pop the wheel out a little bit, but then we put it back and then used the toe plates and checked it, and it was it had to be adjusted just a tiny bit, and it was straight. And I drove the truck today, and it drives straight down the road. So those toe plates are pretty cool. So they're basically just sheet metal aluminum that's been formed and then has some cutouts, and they sell them to you with these two cheapish tape measures, but whatever.
Wasn't part of the expense of the part. It was
No,
just a cheap
they have
tape measure.
Yeah, they have cutouts in them and the plates for these tape measures. So you can use them on the front and rear wheels, and you line them up. They've got these little pins that come out of them. You put them against the wheel, and they're not going to be laser aligned, but they'll be pretty darn close.
Yeah, you can make it pretty good.
And for the amount of cars I have and that we have, it gets really expensive to have alignments done.
Yes, it does. And you're not looking for like a track alignment on everything.
Yeah, although you could do it with these. It's also just frustrating from a time standpoint to like drop the car off, get it picked up, whatever. It's more of a because we're DIY enthusiasts here. It's just like thing. I'm just interested in doing it myself
are we
and
really
trying it.
DIY enthusiasts or are we money saving enthusiasts? There's a combination of the two.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in doing it just doing it. I like the act of doing it.
I'm not a huge fan of the act of doing it. I'm a huge fan of finishing a project and feeling the satisfaction of finishing the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So I am going to use them on the Talon again. We'll double check the front. However, it did drive nice and straight.
We could use them on the Sapporo because it does pull.
And I do, if you look at the back of the Talon, the rear, it's got multi-link in the rear with adjustability, and it does have some toe in the rear that probably needs to be adjusted out a bit. It's probably too much because I think the tires I had on there since like 2003, those Kumos had some chop to the ones that were in the back, the inside. So you could definitely tell they were probably towed in too much. And I had that car professionally aligned, and it was never addressed. So there's also that. Like,
right.
Sometimes you don't get what you want or what you ask for when they do an alignment. So
yeah, there are very few alignment shops that do a good job. In fact, an alignment shop that I know of around here, who we've never mentioned before, but they'll remain nameless anyway. We use them a lot through my work, and we asked for a four-wheel alignment on a car.
Yeah.
And he told me that any shop that says they're doing a four-wheel alignment is lying. He's like, we don't do four-wheel alignments. Nobody does four-wheel alignments.
Yeah, that doesn't... I mean, it totally depends on the vehicle.
And the shop.
Yeah, but like...
That's not a blanket statement you should make if you're an
not.
alignment shop.
It's not. Like a front-wheel drive Camry with like a beam axle or whatever the hell those have now, or whatever cheap front-wheel drive car has a beam axle now, there's probably very little rear adjustment.
There's no adjustment anyway.
At all. So yes, that would be a two-wheel alignment in the front.
Correct.
But all-wheel drive car like a Subaru,
Mhm.
you can 100% do a
And
four-wheel
that's the
alignment.
car we were talking was an Audi. We were talking about.
Okay, an Audi, 100%.
Yeah, and they said no, we just did a front alignment
No.
because anybody that says they did a four-wheel alignment is lying to you. Nobody spends. I have to charge you twice as much to do a four-wheel alignment. No, you wouldn't because other shops definitely do it.
Yeah.
And now the car is tracking crooked down the street. Like it's not good.
Generally, if the rear is never touched, you don't have to unless you lower it. But in your world where it was
Auto
probably in
body.
an accident,
Car accidents.
and the chassis was tweaked, and you guys replaced a bunch of stuff, it needs to be set back to
Yes.
0.
We had 2 in a row that was a problem with. One of them was a Ford Expedition.
Yep.
Which has independent rear now.
Yep.
And that needed an alignment in the rear because it was hitting the rear, and one of them was an Audi. And now I have to be very specific when I drop a vehicle off for an alignment.
Again, you wanted these balanced? Yes.
Well, different shop, so.
I know, but, same kind of thing. But, it's like, geez. Anyway. Yeah, so that was pretty much Project Car updates for now.
Yeah, I haven't worked on anything else.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home tonight and change coolant in a car because it might go below freezing over the evening.
Well, that's the Colt because you were testing it with water,
Yes.
and now all of a sudden it's going to be cold.
And all of a sudden summer is over.
Yeah. Summer, over.
Yeah, so I'll probably fill that with coolant.
Friendship with
tonight.
summer ended.
Yes. But winter is not best friend now.
Nope.
Never, ever.
So, yes, we were alluding to it, but we drove the cars to Philly.
I don't think we alluded to it. I think we flat out said it.
Yeah. And we left early Saturday morning, and we had planned kind of roughly to be there around noontime, 1-ish, and we had remembered that the Simeone Foundation Car Museum was down there,
Yes.
so we went there first. And it just so happened it was on a demonstration day, which is, I guess, not every Saturday.
It's
like,
not common at all. It's like a few times a year.
Yeah. And it was the Ferrari day.
Yeah, a new book came out about Enzo Ferrari,
Yeah.
and the author of said book was there.
But we kind of got there after they'd done a bunch of the main stuff, but they still had cars outside hanging out. One was that's a 57 250 TR,
Yeah, Testarossa.
the pontoon car
Yeah.
in red,
Yeah, like a 30-some-odd million dollar car.
something like that.
Yeah, 38 million.
Gorgeous
I think
car.
it's sold for.
And then one I'd never seen before, which was a 54 375
Yeah, Mille Miglia.
Never seen that before.
It was a beautiful car.
There's a big, huge Alpha. I don't know what it was. There's a couple pre-war race cars that they obviously weren't Ferraris. That yellow car,
Alfa Romeos.
they're Alphas.
Yep.
So they're probably actually that makes sense because they would have been. The theme was they were probably cars that, quote unquote, would have been worked on by Enzo Ferrari because he worked for Alfa before he started Ferrari, which was after World War II.
Correct. Yeah, there were like 4 or 5 Alphas outside,
Mhm.
and then a couple of Ferraris, and then there were a bunch of local ownership Ferraris that were there.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, just gorgeous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there while they were putting them away. They fired them up and did a little lap around the parking lot and then drove back in.
If I'm not mistaken, the author of the book called Enzo Ferrari is Luca Del Monte.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and he was there doing like meet the author autograph
The
signing.
Del
and all that
Monte
stuff.
tomato air. No, I'm just kidding. Probably
Couldn't
not.
tell you. Couldn't tell you.
Um,
But he was there doing like a thing, like a book tour.
A book signing.
Yeah, book signing.
Presentation.
So they did a demonstration day with Ferraris in the collection.
Yeah. So it's a huge warehouse near the Philly airport area in kind of
really
a dumpy
close,
area.
Actually, yeah, it's not in a great place.
And it's really weird. You go in and you're like, oh, this is kind of strange. And if we're being honest, like the actual building and stuff, not great.
It's not
Like-
impressive.
Like compared to the gorgeousness of the Peterson
or even our local museum,
Lars Anderson?
Lars Anderson, yeah,
yeah. But that doesn't matter because the collection inside,
insane.
yeah,
Probably, it's private owned collection,
yes,
so it's all owned by Dr. Simeone.
yeah.
And it's one of the most impressive personally owned collections I've ever seen. Most museums I've been to have cars on loan from other collections. This is all owned by Dr. Simeone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, the stuff that he has.
So some standouts.
I mean, he had a 57 TR.
Yep.
First off.
The Grand Sport Roadster, the most original,
Most original
in
one
existence.
in existence. Yep.
It's white with a blue stripe,
Yes.
which is a weird car.
Yep. And then he has another one, a Grand Sport replica, that is put over the original chassis of that white and blue one, so that they can vintage race that chassis without fear of damaging that mostly original body, which is pretty cool.
And then the Shelby Cobra Coupe,
But not any Cobra, the Cobra Coupe. Yep.
which apparently is the one that was registered as historic vehicle number 1.
Yeah, it's the one that was run at Bonneville and was run at Le Mans and was run all over the place.
Unrestored. It's
Yep.
got dings and dents on it, paint chips.
Yep. It's very cool.
And it's funny because in your brain, the color on those is a lot more vibrant blue than
Yeah.
it actually is
It's kind of a
in
dull,
real life.
boring blue.
Kind of almost more of a teal than like a deep blue.
And it was my first time ever seeing one in person as well. I've only ever seen like the kit car versions of them.
I feel like I've seen one at Lime Rock running historics, but maybe not.
I don't think you have. Maybe you have. I don't know. I haven't been there every year. But I've never seen one in person. I've only seen the kit cars. And the proportions
They're kind of weird.
are different. So the kit cars have been made a little more elegant looking.
Mm-hmm.
And they look a little more proportional and like because they want to sell them. So
Yeah,
they make them
yeah.
pretty. Whereas this car, it's a little ungainly looking because it's meant to just fit around the chassis and work.
Yeah.
It
was a
with
weird
not
aerodynamic.
not a lot of thought put into design versus aerodynamics. So it's just
it was more of an aerodynamic experiment.
exercise, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as pretty as the kit car versions are,
Yeah.
but it's cool, and it's obviously way cooler than them. Another standout, other than the 57 TR and the 375 mm, was the Porsche 917, the psychedelic paint car,
Yeah.
the purple one with the green, like the real car.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought at first when I saw it, maybe it was a replica because there is a replica running around locally,
Yeah.
but it wasn't.
Nope.
It was the real car.
There was a bunch of pre-war Le Mans sports cars,
Yep.
open-wheel cars, which were awesome.
Yep.
Then the 2 GT40s,
A Mark II and a Mark IV.
Mark III.
Mark II and a Mark IV.
I believe the yellow car was a Mark III.
It was not because I made an Instagram post about it, and I made sure I got it correct.
Okay.
Because I took a picture of the signage in front of it.
The Mark IV was interesting because it was a long-tail version that was done for 67,
Yes.
and it's a really, again, not a very attractive car.
No, the Mark II is way prettier.
Yes.
When you picture a GT40 in your brain, you picture the Mark II.
Yeah. The long tail is purely an aero experiment, and it did set a lap record. So it's neat in that aspect. But I actually wouldn't want to own one because I don't know how many there are. It's probably only that one long tail. But it's kind of gross.
66 Mark II.
Okay. And it's funny because in yellow, it almost looks like a kit car.
Because you're used to seeing the kit cars in yellow.
Yeah, it's such a ridiculous looking yellow.
Yeah, it's definitely not, though.
Okay. I was wrong. And then...
I mean, it's definitely not a kit car.
Oh, yeah. And then it's funny, the museum has like little diorama displays for everything.
Yeah, but they look like they were like school projects. Like school play. Like
Yeah.
a backdrop for a school
Yeah.
play. Like they had the GT40s parked in front of like the
Dunlop
tire that goes over the straight. But it was like clearly cardboard. Like
with plywood, yeah.
yeah. And they had like a bunch of like fake trees behind them and like fake fencing. It just didn't.
It was still better than other museums I've been to where the cars are just parked next to each other, like lined up in a
No, they
giant
made
room.
they made a valiant effort at it.
Yeah.
But they definitely spent a lot more on the cars than they
Yeah.
did on the display for the
Yeah.
cars.
That was cool. And they had like a back annex that had some kind of wild stuff in it.
Yeah, it was kind of the lesser important car section. They did have a Bill Elliott Coors stock car, which
Yeah.
is pretty sweet. They
Oh,
had
what else? Lancaster? What was that British sports car?
the blue thing.
Yeah.
I can look it up.
I feel like it was a Lancaster or something. It was something that was
Squire?
kind of a Squire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
1933 Squire Roadster, considered one of the most beautiful English sports cars of the 30s.
Yeah, it was very.
It looks later than a 33.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it looks like a Jaguar SS 100 or whatever.
Yeah, that was super
So
cool.
Jaguar.
So we got to thank Throttle by Cable. Kept telling us to go because we talk about it and we talk about it. He mentioned to us that we should go. So totally, totally worth it. If you're in the Philadelphia area, look it up. See when it's open. If you can make it on a demonstration day, totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
But worth it by itself.
Oh, they had a D-type Jag there too.
Oh,
The
right,
silver one,
right. Yeah.
And that was kind of cool because that display behind all those Le Mans cars
Mm-hmm.
was set up like the pits.
Yeah.
That actually looked kind of neat over there. They had some original like fueling stations and stuff like that set up behind the cars.
Mm-hmm. But it was just funny because I've seen those D-type Jags running at Lime Rock during the historic. So it was kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever. It's D-type Jag. No big deal.
No. The one with like the single seat
I'm
with
talking about the silver cars.
No, those are E-types.
Oh, okay.
No, the D-type is very different from that.
Oh, there was a... Yeah, that's right. There was a D-type there.
The D-type is the really swoopy.
Yep.
Very different than the E-types.
Yeah. It was a racing prototype, yeah.
Yeah, the one, like the Steve McQueen book on the cover shows him getting in the green one.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, it was definitely worth a visit. It's not the biggest collection. Probably, I don't know, what, 40 cars or so?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more. But they're mostly spectacular.
Yeah. No, it was cool.
Pretty amazing place.
And then, yeah, it wasn't even that expensive either. It's like $12 a person.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
No.
Oh, very, very reasonable entry.
And of course, we get there and I go to leave and the town won't start.
Wah, wah, wah.
It's like, oh, this is where it goes.
Guess I'm still in the town in Philly.
So I'm like, huh, all right. And Stephanie's with us, my wife. She's like, well, we could bump start it, right? I was like, yeah. Like, let me look at stuff here. And I look at the floor, and I can see this, like, yellow plastic piece that's on the floor mat area. I'm like,
And you recognized
I
it.
think I know what that is.
Yeah.
So I go up there with a flashlight and I look, and of course there's a little rubber cushion. Now it's dried hard plastic. That when you push the clutch in, it depresses the clutch safety switch, and that's what lets you start the car. Now I have 2 spares of these in the Galant because I had this happen one time, and I ended up putting a starter in the Galant because of it.
Not
'Cause I
realizing
didn't
it was
realize
so
what
simple.
it was.
Yep.
So I bought 2 spares, and I meant to put one in the Talon and keep one in the Galant because I did bring them with us to Atlanta. But I just happened to have an extra body push clip, so I trimmed it down with some
Like
side
interior trim
cutters.
style?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I popped it out of the center, the centerpiece out of it, and I trimmed it down, stuck it in there, and it's still in there right now, and that's what got the car started, and just kept
Worked
going.
for the rest of the weekend.
Yep, and it still worked.
And the car's home. You didn't have to sell it in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So that was just the one weird thing that we had happen. But other than that, car ran great. I got like 24 miles a gallon in that car.
How many?
24 miles per
Yeah,
gallon.
that's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I wound up about the same with the Sapporo.
Considering how rich it's running, yes.
Yeah, I wound up about the same with the Sapporo, which is pretty good considering it's carbureted and automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So, worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I only filled up for gas once on the way home, once on the way back. Like, I left with a full tank and filled up partway there. It was fine. I left there with a full tank, filled up partway home. It was fine. No complaints. Worked pretty well, actually.
So then we wrapped up and went to the hotel, which was in the Navy Yard. This beautiful built-up area. It used to be the Philadelphia Navy Yard. Got a new hotel in there, a bunch of office buildings.
Park.
This nice little park, and that's where the Radwood show is going to be. So we met up with the DWA guys and Bradley Brownell and the Clutch Kick guys, and because we were volunteering to help them do stuff at the show.
Yes.
We went over some details of the show beforehand. Then we hung out. The next morning, we went over to the show, and you and I helped do a bunch of things.
Yeah, parking cars, checking people in, just whatever they needed help with. I laid down with Chris from Clutch Kick. We laid down all the cables for the DJ
And taped them
and
down.
taped them down. If anybody ever asks you to tape cables to the ground,
like 50 feet of cables.
100 feet each way. So it was 200 feet of cables. Don't agree to it. It is awful. My knees still hurt because I was not expecting to do that.
But yeah, we if you were there, if you've seen pictures, basically looked like a little 80s 90s town.
Yeah, no, it was really neat.
They set up around this old barracks, and they parked all the cars. And
Which the barracks building conveniently had a facade on that looked kind of like the clock tower from Back to the Future.
It really did. But I mean, there's coverage of it everywhere. I mean, this was a cool show. It was fun.
Yeah.
It had the vibe of the LA show did last year
With more cars.
with more cars.
Yeah, and more people probably. And better food.
Yeah.
Food selection was awesome.
Yes, it was.
I had ramen, like from a ramen truck.
There was a pierogi truck. And that's
There
what
was
I
a
had.
pierogi truck, a ramen truck, and a pizza truck.
Yeah.
Really good.
I didn't get any pizza.
I didn't get any pizza either, but the pizza truck had bagels in the morning, which was pretty key.
Yeah. Well, I had a breakfast burrito at the place. But anyway, there was so much stuff that there was things I'm seeing in pictures. I'm like, how did I even miss that?
Didn't even see that. We were helping park the cars, directing traffic, and didn't even see that car roll in.
Yeah. So what happened with the... I mean, I don't want to get...
Before we get that far forward, the show started at 11.
Right.
Okay?
It was scheduled to start at 11.
Show starts at 11.
I think we had everybody parked by 10:30.
Everybody showed up early.
Yeah.
Like, really early.
That's
Cars
how-
were showing up at 7:30 in the morning.
That's how excited everyone is about this show.
Cars were showing up at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
For a show that starts at 11.
Mhm.
You know, we joke all the time about, like, the boomer shows and how, like, you know, the old guys that aren't working and retired go to the park for the 5 o'clock show at 3 o'clock.
I know.
But this is different because people just generally wanted to be involved with this new thing. So the show started at 11. It was like 10:30, and I was standing next to Brad, other Brad, and I was like, "Man, it's 10:30," and he's like, "Yup." And I said, "The show doesn't even start for a half hour, and there's probably 450 cars here. This is absurdity." And he's like, "Yup." So from 8 o'clock until 10:30, there was a line that wrapped around the block to get into the show. Unheard of amount of cars. We were just swamped with people, swamped with cars, swamped with questions. Nobody was really angry about waiting in line because they all just understood we were trying to filter everybody into this one entrance.
We appreciate it.
And it was awesome that nobody was yelling at us. A couple cars had like a minor overheating problem, and one had like a minor ground strap problem. But even they weren't mad about it. He just shut it off, let it cool down, and started it back up again.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. So I got to talk to a lot of people. You know, I tried to make sure that, you know, everybody I saw, I was like, "Hey, thanks for your patience. Like,
Yeah.
we'll get you in as soon as we can." And everybody was just really cool and really just into the whole thing and just happy to be there.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It's fun that they let us be involved in it and help out.
Yeah.
Because we were really, like, badgering them about an East Coast show.
I don't know if we really were.
We definitely
Some
were.
people definitely were.
We definitely asked for it.
We asked for it, but I don't think we badgered. Maybe you badgered, but
yeah.
I didn't badger.
A lot of people asked
badgering,
for it,
Andrew.
and I'm happy that plenty of people showed up.
I'm happy
and
that
made
not
it-
only did they do it, but we proved that it was worthwhile.
we made it worth their time.
Yeah. There were jokes all about, you know, instead of calling it Radwood in the East Coast, we're going to have to call it Rustwood because all the cars are junk and this, that, and the other thing.
No.
What I don't think is realized by a lot of people that don't live here,
Yes.
that we have so many good cars and they get hidden and they're all low miles because they get parked for 6 to 7 months out of the year
Exactly.
while wintertime is here. And then when summertime breaks, everybody takes their cars back out again.
This dude, there was a guy that rolled up in a blue Buick Regatta?
Riata? I didn't see a Riata. Most Riatas are red.
No, earlier Buick, rear-wheel drive. I don't know what, Rialta? No.
Rear-wheel drive wouldn't have been a Riata.
I don't know. It was a big Buick that was kind of like
Describe the car.
like an 80s Cadillac.
Was it stock?
Yes. It looked like an 80s Cadillac.
I missed this car, apparently.
I don't know what kind of Buick it was.
Okay. Roadmaster.
No, it was a two-door coupe.
Regal.
Landau top. Regal, maybe?
A Regal would be like a Cutlass.
Nope. Bigger than that, probably.
I didn't see the car.
But anyway, I don't know what body it would have been.
Okay, that's
Not
fine.
a G body.
Yeah, you're not into those cars specifically.
Yeah, it It was like a light metallic blue with a blue landau top, blue crushed velvet interior.
Was
Guy
it a
rolled.
Buick or an Olds?
It was a Buick. It was definitely a Buick because I looked at it to make sure what it was. The guy rolls up and he's waiting there. I'm letting him gonna go through to park, and he's sitting in there in a crushed velour Flea tracksuit. He's like, "Oh, this is awesome! Like, I only live like 5 minutes from here." I'm like, "All right." Like this older guy, I'm like, "Man, this is like, like you've owned this car for a long time, and like that tracksuit is like part of your normal wardrobe. Like you're totally into
Just
this."
pulled it out. It's awesome.
Yeah. That was like one standout thing that was so funny.
That's really cool. I wish I knew what kind of car it was. I wish I knew what the Buick was because I don't remember even seeing it. Again, that just speaks volumes about how many cars were there. I didn't notice this Buick.
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of the American stuff because a lot of the other Radwoods were heavily European.
Those turbo K cars.
An army of turbo K cars, not just one.
That red Dodge Spirit.
Yeah, the one that won Best American Car?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a 91 Dodge Spirit RT
5-speed.
with a 5-speed manual.
Red wheels.
Well, red inserts.
Okay.
Polished face red inserts. Kind of like the hated polished face black insert wheels we have
Yeah,
nowadays,
yeah,
but red, so it's period correct and cool.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean the stuff was just insane.
Yeah.
There's no other word to describe it. Everything from, our two friends that brought their Delica vans down from Massachusetts at a nice brisk pace of 55 miles an hour the whole way, to Testarossas, to 348s, 911s, 930s, 993s, 964s, Toyota Celicas from the 80s, F bodies, and of course, no East Coast show is complete without an army of Mark II and Mark III Volkswagens.
And there was a twin to my car there that won the Jalopnik Award.
Yes, so there were
Front-wheel
two
drive, 91.
DSMs, and they were both champagne colored.
Yep. There's a pretty clean. Oh, there's pretty clean stock steering. There's two
There were at least 3 Starions total.
two JC swapped steerings.
There was only one.
One.
I was
The
given
white
misinformation on the other one. So there was a champagne-colored Starion,
Yep.
the red Starion that won the Jalopnik Award,
Yep.
and the white car with the 2J swap.
There might have been a blue one too. I feel like
I don't remember seeing a blue one, but
there's
there could
so
have been a
many,
blue one.
so many, and I was so overwhelmed by the amount of cars that I didn't like see everything.
Yeah.
The Quattro Coupe that we posted a picture of on Instagram was amazing.
That one best Euro car, I think, right?
I think so. There was
Or, excuse me, raddest Euro.
that 4x4 Datsun that I looked over. I thought was a Toyota at first.
Oh, yeah,
The
like
orange-
the
the
81
black
or
with the orange
82.
stripe was awesome
Yeah,
looking.
That was neat. It was an import right-hand drive diesel.
Eric Carahalis brought his Raider.
Yep. There were 4 Monteros.
And thank you, Eric, for helping us park cars.
Yeah, he helped as well, too. That's great, too. Yeah, there was the...
Derek from Philly, I don't know his last name. He helped park cars.
Yep. And Chris from
Bring a Trailer.
Bring Trailer helped as
Yep.
well, yeah. As well as all the guys that organized the show,
All
obviously.
the DWA guys
Yeah.
and Clutch Kick guys.
And Brad.
Yep. And Brad Burnell.
There was, 4 Monteros. Because there was the right-hand drive Pajero.
Yep.
Long wheelbase.
Which I shook your hand. I'm sorry, I forget
There
your
was
name.
the short wheelbase second-gen
Yep.
Pajero
Don't know
diesel.
who that was.
There was Jose with his second-gen Montero.
Yes.
Long
I met
wheelbase.
him.
And then Eric with his short wheelbase first-gen, who we already know.
Yep.
And then the 2 Delica vans. So there were 6 4x4 Mitsubishis.
There's a white Delica van too.
7 4x4 Mitsubishis, which is 6 more than any other Radwood before it.
Oh, how about the cute older couple that had the blue Hondas?
Oh yeah, they had 2 like minty fresh. I would say, what was it, an 81? They said Civic.
Was it 80 or an 81 Civic?
Oh, Accord. Excuse me, it was Accord.
Accord. Yeah.
Yeah, 80, 81 Accord hatchback, much like the silver one that I used to have, automatic.
Metallic
but
blue
Metallic
blue
blue with the
interior.
blue, like, crushed velour interior.
Yeah.
And they had, what year was the first year of Acura? 88, 89, 87? 87.
I thought it was earlier than that.
86?
Yeah, maybe.
It was a first gen Integra, like pop-up headlight style Integra in a blue color that was, like, immaculately brand new as well. Now it's just cool to see.
Yeah.
And they weren't like a hipster crowd that everybody was saying the show is full of. Oh, it's full of hipsters, whatever. They were like an older couple that was there enjoying the day.
Into it.
It was such a cool show.
Yeah.
Oh, and a couple people had set, like, our friend Chris in the Delica had set up a Nintendo and a CRT inside the van with like a power inverter and a battery, and they were playing like Duck Hunt and Mario all
Yeah,
day.
it was wild.
And the people with the Rolls Royce the Black Rose convertible.
Yeah.
They had a CRT set up next to the car,
Yeah.
and they were playing N64.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about that car, like this is the cool thing about Radwood, is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Everybody's there for a good time. So you know how the Rolls Royce has the Spirit of Ecstasy, the lady
Yeah.
on the front.
Yeah.
They dressed it up in Malibu Barbie clothes.
Oh,
Was wearing like a
is that
pink
that's what that
Malibu
was?
Barbie vest and like a green Malibu
Oh,
Barbie
alright.
tutu on the Spirit of Ecstasy on the grill of the car, which was really neat.
So early word, they plan on coming back.
Yeah, they were pretty stoked on the outcome.
So yeah, if you missed it, you should go. If you're sick of us talking about it, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's a good
tough.
time. Everybody's talking about it.
We'll promote this until the end of time
It-
because it's totally our scene and it's totally our people and it's just a good time.
It made an impression. It's on all sorts of places. Actually,
It feels more like a block party than a car show.
yeah. Actually, the Sapporo made the slideshow on Car and Driver.
It did. The top 12 cars of Radwood, Philadelphia.
Talon was in one of the Jalopnik
As was the Sapporo.
galleries. Yeah.
Same gallery. It's pretty cool.
So, I mean, it is what it is.
Chris's Delica made that same
a
Jalopnik.
bunch of places.
Bunch of places, but also that same Jalopnik article that the two guys
Yeah.
were in. Picture his son playing Mario in the back of it. Pretty neat.
Chris, I know you were unsure about going, but now you were totally stoked that
Oh
you
yeah,
went.
he's totally happy he went.
So-
He had a great time. Plus, he and his family got to take in a Flyers game the day before.
Yeah.
So they made it a whole thing, which is pretty sweet.
They said that new mascot's pretty cool, I guess. What's his
Gritty.
name? Gritty?
Gritty. Yeah, he looks like a methed out Cookie Monster. Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty cool.
So,
Yeah, no, it was a good time, and I can't wait for the next one. For West Coast people, that's LA in early December, like the first weekend in
I
December.
believe it's December 2nd.
I'm really gonna try to get there. Really gonna try
We'll
to
see.
get there. Yeah, I want to go.
It's tough,
Period.
but we'll see.
Yeah, it's hard because it's completely across the country, but made it to last year, and last year was great, and I just want to go back again. So I just enjoy it. There's nothing else to say about it. I heard from more than one person that said they don't even normally enjoy car shows, that they had a great time here. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was a costume contest the whole time as well. So
Yeah.
there's on top of the dressing in the Rad era clothing, because it was so close to Halloween, they held a costume contest. And I saw a Beetlejuice,
That was Rick.
that was Rick, yep.
Clutch
A Macho Man Randy Savage, and his female companion was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Even the DJ at one point called him
Randy Man Savage? Something.
Randy Man Macho Savage.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever.
There were a bunch of cool costumes, but my favorite, and everybody's favorite because it won Raddest costume, was the guy that dressed up like Elliot from E.T.
Yeah.
and was riding around on a BMX bike
And-
with a milk crate in the front with a paper mache E.T. with a light up finger.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of people with BMX bikes they had lined up with boomboxes.
They were all his.
Oh, wow.
They all belonged to that guy. He had the teal Mustang Cobra that was there, the 93 or
Yeah,
92
that's wild.
Mustang Cobra. And he had another pickup truck that he brought all those bikes in.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
cool guy. Yeah, very cool guy.
Oh, and you have a special story about, because you ensured that the car that won Raddest of Show actually made it in the show.
That's true. So we were parking cars. I think I was with Brad still. And this gentleman rolled in a Ferrari 348, I think. The convertible.
Yeah.
I think it was a
Yeah,
348.
it's a 348.
I'm not good with that era of Ferrari numbers, so if I'm wrong, I apologize.
It wasn't a 355, it's a 348.
Yeah, it was pre 355. And it was Rad era, so that would make sense. Anyway, so we had opened up some parking spots in the middle of the show, and we were trying to fill some cars in there. And I was like, hey, there's a Testarossa parked over there.
Yeah, you had to go around the block.
It'd be kind of cool to get the 348 to park the Testarossa. So I was like, hey, do you want to park over in like the main part of the show? We have a spot next to a Testarossa. It'd be really neat. And he's like, all right. Yeah, that'd be cool. So I tried to explain to him how to get there, and then we couldn't figure it out. So it was like, you know what? Why don't just ride in the car? I'll ride in the car with you, and I'll show you where to go. So already cool. I'm getting to ride in a Ferrari. You know, it's a little bit of highlight of the day. It's a Roadster too. Top was up. It's very difficult to get in and out of a Ferrari 348 Roadster at about 6 feet tall with the top up. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't fun. So I get in the car. We roll around the block, and we go to the main entrance, and there is in front of us this, I don't remember what year it was an 88, 89 Mercedes sedan, the big S
It might have
class.
been. I think it might have even been mid-'80s
Regardless, it was this big S class Mercedes
in maroon,
in maroon,
gold
super wide
BBSs.
body, Koenig special.
Yeah,
Like the Testarossa side strakes, the big wing,
4-door.
four door. Yeah,
So
the
that's a bizarre car.
15-inch wide wheels.
I've
Like,
never seen a 4-door, a picture of one, let alone one in person.
So I don't know if it was any kind of a real special or not, but there used to be one in Salem that was parked down on Grove Street at Grove Street Auto Body. It was white, of course.
Probably on white or red.
Yeah, and it had the AMG hammer style wheels, super deep dish, and it had the TV antenna on the back. Very similar style car to this. Anyway, I don't know the history of that car, and it's no longer there. So it was there in like the 90s when it was not cool anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the guy's trying to pull in, and the security guard was like, "Man, you can't go this way. They've closed off the lot. The show's full. You have to go elsewhere." And now I'm behind in the Ferrari, just as a passenger in a Ferrari, and I jump out of the car and I walk up to the security guard in no official capacity. I don't have anything that says staff. I've never talked to the security guard. Nothing at all. Just walked up to him and I'm like, "No, sir. This car is getting in, and the Ferrari behind it is getting in." And he just looks at me and he sits back and he's like, "What? I mean, do you know where they're going?" And I was like, "I do." So he's like, "All right, I guess." And he let us through. So me, as just like a passenger in this Ferrari who has no idea who the security guy is, and the security guard looks at me and was like, "I don't know. I'm not going to fight with this guy. He seems to know what he's talking about. I'm just going to let him go." Let us through. So that was kind of neat because he's trying not to let this car in, and the car wound up winning Radisson Show.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. So I jumped out of the Ferrari, let everybody in. I walked in front of them and just had them follow me or all the way around the block, which the Mercedes barely fit through some of these spots because it's so wide where the cars were parked. Go around the block and park, in like near the vendor area.
Oh, the guy was super into it too.
This guy was so into it. I think his name was Lou. He'd gotten the car from willed to him from his friend who bought it brand new.
Yeah, his late friend, and then
Yeah, it's a cool story about how his friend didn't want to wait for it, so he had bought it here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, shipped it to Germany to have them put the wide body on it and do all the modifications.
on a Lufthansa.
No, and didn't want to wait to send it back on a boat, so he had
Sent it over there.
one way or the other. Didn't want to wait for a boat, so he had it sent in a Lufthansa jet.
Yeah, both ways. Yeah.
To which it was immediately like impounded when it landed here.
Yeah, because they probably thought the body kit was made of cocaine.
Yeah, more than likely, or filled with it.
Yeah.
And who's to say it wasn't? It was the 80s.
Hey, whatever, man.
Had
So,
its money
yeah.
somehow.
That's a little piece of lore for you.
Yeah, Radwood was a great time. No question.
I think that's a podcast.
I would probably say yes.
All right. So, as always, please rate, review us on.
I mean, your car came home no problem at all? It's just a cold ending there?
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing at all. It's
Yeah,
just
mine
literally.
too. I had to leave Sunday night because I had to go to work the next day. So we drove home from like 10:30 in Philly till like 4 in the morning in Boston area. But
Yeah, I have
not
nothing
a
to
big
report.
deal.
I mean, I've went through that car many years ago and touched basically everything in it. So it really was not a big deal to get back going.
And I made sure everything was up to snuff on the Sporo as well, and it was.
And actually, I keep forgetting now. I'm like, oh yeah, that car is back on the road. Like,
Yeah, I can drive it. Yeah.
just go drive it. It's
Yeah,
so
same
weird.
with me with the Sapporo. It's been not quite as long, but it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. That was good motivation to get those projects back on track.
For sure.
There's more to be done to it, but now the big hurdle is that it's drivable. So.
Yep. One last announcement. There is something coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. There is still space available, I found out. So if you want to look up the New England Flatlanders, or Northeast Flatlanders, they are doing a charity event.
Toys for Tots. And a trail cleanup.
The weekend after this. So look up Northeast Flatlanders on Facebook, look up the group, and I think there's still 5 or 6 spots left.
Weekend of Halloween, the weekend before Halloween, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a podcast. Please rate and review us on iTunes. That helps us out. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Auto Off Topic Podcast. Go follow Southern New Hampshire Cars and Coffee for at least the last event of this season, and for the as soon as they're starting up in the next spring, you'll be in the loop, and you can follow us on Instagram, Auto Off Topic And myself on Instagram, Raced in Anger.
And as always, me on Instagram at TSISS350.
All right, keep cars analog and aim for the roses. Analog